2023 meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We'll call the meeting to order and first call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. If you now please join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arns.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Snorton.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion on the consent agenda to remove items 13 through 18 and add that to the regular agenda after item 30.
Second that.
Okay, motion and second to approve the consent agenda. With that change, the removal of the consent items 13 through 18 to the regular agenda. Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Right, would then look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So move.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
The proclamation for the- Okay. All right. Tonight, we have a special presentation, a proclamation to recognize May 15th, 2023 as Law Enforcement Memorial Day and May 14th to May 20th, 2023 as National Police Week. And the proclamation reads as such: whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Norfolk Police Division. And whereas the Norfolk Police Division plays an essential role in safeguarding the rights, freedoms, and property of all members of the community, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Norfolk Police Division unceasingly provide this vital public service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moning, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, on behalf of our citizens, declare the week of May 14th to May 20th, 2023 to be National Police Week in the City of Norfolk, and May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and to let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Be it further resolved that I and the Norfolk City Council call upon all citizens to join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their calling, have rendered a dedicated service to their community and have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. We publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation. So here with us tonight, we have several officers and our Chief Miller. If you'd like to come forward and be recognized, I think we have officially a copy of the proclamation somewhere that we'll get to you, but we'll get a photo tonight and have you say a few words, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Chief. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate the service. Thank you.
Real briefly, thank you, Mayor, citizens. This is a great opportunity to recognize today as Law Enforcement Memorial Day for those that have lost their lives. Last year, there was 246 police officers, I believe, that lost their lives last year. We're already at 42 so far this year. The rest of the week is for law enforcement, National Law Enforcement Week. This isn't for me, this is for the folks here that are dedicated to doing the job. And we can't do our jobs without the citizen support. We work with the community, we don't work, it's not us doing things for the community, we have to work together. And we can't solve our problems if you're not willing to get involved and help us do our jobs. And we're very fortunate to have dedicated men and women who are willing to show up every day and do the hard work to make sure the communities are safe and to make sure you folks are comfortable coming and going in your daily business without having to worry about some of the negative things that are in society. We'll handle those so you don't have to. So thank you everybody for our support, both in the community, the elected officials, and the mayor. Again, we couldn't do our jobs if it wasn't for everybody's support. Thank you.
Well said, Chief. Thank you to all officers who joined us tonight. Goes without saying that we very much benefit from and respect the service that is provided to us every day by the division and the culture of excellence that has been instilled within that division. So thank you for your dedication, commitment. Okay. We now move on to item 23 on the council agenda under public hearings and related action. First public hearing, I will open to consider a request from Brooke N. Sherbeck to consider a zoning change from A, Agricultural District and RR, Rural Residential District, to RR, Rural Residential District on property addressed as 2005 Crown Road. And to kick off this public hearing, for some background, we'll hear from Val Grimes, our city planner.
Thank you. This piece of property is in Stanton County, and it's against our extraterritorial jurisdiction line. So it is at the edge where we choose to hopefully have RR to go. This is an interesting piece of property. It is essentially a triangle that has one kind of floating platted lot in the middle of the triangle with another lot of record surrounding it. And there's two little pieces of RR with the rest of it being ag. So this is kind of a cleanup of this piece of property to make it all one zoning. And then as number 25, you'll see there's a plat that goes along with it to actually split this up into three lots, where one has an existing house, one has a house currently started on it, and then there would be a third one that doesn't have anything ready to be built on right now. And so if you do not pass the zoning on all three readings tonight, then we will pull the plat that goes along with it until the zoning is complete.
Okay, thank you, Val. Any questions on that? Okay, this is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Okay, seeing and hearing no one. Move on to item number 24, and I'll close the discussion, ask for a planning commission report first.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 2nd, 2023 at the request of Brooke N. Sherbeck to consider a zoning change from A, Agricultural District and RR, Rural Residential District, to RR, Rural Residential District, on property addressed as 2005 Crown Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the request with an 8-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and move on to item number 24, looking for a motion to consider ordinance number 5833 approving zoning change from A and RR to RR on property addressed as 2005 Crown Road.
I will offer for consideration ordinance number 5833, approving a zoning change from agricultural and RR to RR.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on this, council? Comments? Any public input on this? Okay, hearing none. Short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5833 carries on first reading.
Seeing no opposition to that, I would request that we suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. No discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5833 carries on second and third.
Item 25 would look for a motion to consider resolution number 2023-22 approving the final plat of Scherbeck subdivision.
And I'll make a motion for consideration of resolution number 2023-22.
Second.
Motion second. Val, anything to add here or no? Okay.
No.
Any questions or comments? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2023-22 is adopted.
Item 26, so we'll open this public hearing to consider the redevelopment plan for the Phillip Avenue Apartments redevelopment project. And to kick off discussion, we'll hear from Randy Gates or Val, either one.
Yes, Your Honor. On January 17th, Phillip Avenue Apartments submitted a redevelopment plan or TIF application for property located at the northeast corner of Phillip Avenue and 5th Street. This is property behind the former Courtesy Ford building. On February 21, the Economic Development Subcommittee reviewed the application and voted unanimously to move forward with acceptance of a redevelopment plan for the project. On April 3rd, the Community Development Agency accepted the redevelopment plan and forwarded it to the Planning Commission for recommendation. The Planning Commission held a hearing on this redevelopment plan at their April 18th meeting and recommended approval of the plan on a 7-0 vote. On May 1, the agency voted unanimously to recommend approval of the redevelopment plan to the City Council. Enclosed in the agenda packet is the redevelopment plan. The project site is approximately 0.8 of an acre and contains both paved and non-paved surfaces, along with a vacant building. The redevelopment project will consist of demolishing the building and removal of the services to build a 30-unit apartment complex with green space and parking. It's anticipated this project will provide housing for Wayne State students participating in the Growing Together initiative. If developers purchase the project and will incur an additional TIF-eligible costs such as site prep and removing the concrete and building, dirt work, extension of utilities, along with engineering and legal fees. TIF-eligible costs are expected to be over $500,000. Total project cost is expected to be more than $5 million. The comp plan designates this area for mixed use, which encompasses a wide variety of uses, including apartment buildings. The comp plan also encourages higher density residential development in mixed use areas. And the comp plan indicates the best example of a mixed use development in Norfolk is in downtown. This project is located in the downtown area and is in conformance with the comp plan and will assist in carrying out the objectives of the comp plan. The project site is currently zoned R3 for multifamily residential. The redeveloper is requesting TIF of $445,000. The project is not economically feasible without TIF. Without TIF, the average return on investment over the first 10 years is 0.55%. With TIF, this is 5.86%. I'd answer any questions, and the redeveloper's also here tonight.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to comment can do so now.
Jim McKenzie. And this comment isn't necessarily geared specifically at this project. It's regarding TIF, and I brought this up to you in the past. And I realize this thing is already down the road and this is going to happen anyway, but I just wanted to have the opportunity to talk about TIF again. This appears to be a run-of-the-mill apartment building, and if it requires TIF to be financially viable, then I'm assuming any apartment buildings that are going to be built in the city in the future are going to require TIF. It seems as though that everything is going to require a taxpayer subsidy. It seems that every request is approved for TIF. It robs the city, the school district, the county, and other taxing entities of revenue. I don't blame the developers at all for asking for TIF because it's a carrot out there and all they've got to do is ask for it to get it. It's easy money. I also don't believe that these developments wouldn't happen without TIF. I just think that at some point in time the city needs to develop a policy to better control the use of TIF. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else wishing to make comment?
I'll address the comment made about the TIF and that every apartment will utilize TIF. I'm currently building a 64-unit apartment complex on North 13th Street. Land cost on that apartment project is approximately $3,000 per unit for 64 units, and I did not request TIF because it was financially feasible with that land cost not to utilize TIF. In the downtown area where this building is built, the land cost is over $9,000 per unit, so that is why we requested TIF on this particular multifamily project. And the assumption that it is requested on every multifamily project is obviously false with those two examples. So, questions?
Appreciate that clarification, Kelby. And could you confirm too? True during a 15-year TIF period, if that's the period of time, you're still paying the property taxes on that land. You're paying the basis of the property taxes, right?
Correct. We will continue to pay the property tax that is being assessed currently, and the TIF amount is based upon the increased value that we create in the development.
Right. So it's not like no property taxes or any less property taxes are being collected on that property as it stands now.
Correct. The same amount of property tax will go to the city, state, and counties once we're done. That's currently for 15 years, and then after 15 years, you will get the increased value from what we have.
Yeah. And Kelby, on this particular project, approximately 30 units, 20 or so of those are designated for Wayne State students. Is that correct? And then a portion are market rate. Yeah.
20 plus for Wayne State students, and then I think there's 6 or 7 that will be market rate.
Okay.
You check and see if that mic is on.
Hello.
There
Now
it is.
is.
Yep.
I just have one comment too,
Sure.
Kelby. So, TIF eligible cost, you're not even asking for the maximum that you could, correct? Am I reading that right? You're
Correct.
asking for less than what you could?
Correct. There are additional costs, or there is additional TIF dollars that we could have requested, but we don't have eligible costs to do that, so that's why we didn't. So I think it's a prudent, responsible request. And the example I gave on 13th Street, again, where I didn't feel TIF was necessary due to the land costs. And I understand the comment about the perception that TIF is asked for and received on all projects, but that is false, and sometimes it's just necessary to make that make sense. So.
All right. Thank you, Kelby.
Thanks.
It's a public hearing. Anyone else wishing to make comment?
I just want to follow up a little bit on that. So, and I don't have it right in front of me right now, but it seemed to me like the total property cost was $275,000. Is that correct? So the TIF, by the time you add the $445,000 plus interest over 15 years, is $890,000. So the TIF is 4 times what the property costs. So anyway, I'm just understanding how the property being $275,000 makes this thing TIF and the other one not. It doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make comment?
I got a few questions. Last fall.
Can you tell us your name, sir?
Oh, Lonnie Sandel. Last fall, I think it was in the paper that you had 2 park superintendents and 2 maintenance superintendents for the streets. Is that correct?
This is a public hearing on the Phillip Avenue Apartments redevelopment project.
No, not no project. Just
That's what the issue before us is right now.
there is 2 for each one. Is there?
I'm not sure what you're asking about, but it sounds like it's not relevant to the issue before the council right now.
At one time in the paper, it said there was 2 park superintendents and 2 maintenance superintendents.
I don't know what you're referring to, sir, and it's not relevant to the issue before the council right now.
I cornered you last fall about that after a meeting, remember? And I asked if they was working superintendents, or are they gonna have an office? Are they gonna go out and work with the crew?
Sir, there is a time for these discussions when we have open comment, or if it's a issue relevant to parks. But this is a public hearing related to a specific issue, the redevelopment plan for the Phillip Avenue Apartments.
Well,
So we can come back to a discussion when it has to do about parks, and I'm glad to talk to you after the meeting too about this. But this is not the appropriate order or process for this right now.
I got some other stuff here.
We do need to keep this discussion, though, on task with the specific agenda item that we're talking about, which is a public hearing for this redevelopment project. So we have to limit the comments for this agenda item to that. So if there's
Okay.
another opportunity to
In
speak
other
about
words, if I
parks.
ain't on the agenda, I don't get to talk, right?
Correct, we need to limit our discussion to this specific agenda item at this time.
I guess that's the way it works.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment as part of this public hearing? All right, hearing none, I'll move to close the hearing and advance to item 27. We'll look for a motion to consider resolution number 2023-23, approving the redevelopment plan for the Phillip Avenue Apartments redevelopment project.
I'll make a motion for consideration of resolution number 2023-23.
Second.
Motion and second. Any comments on this, council? Any questions? Discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2023-23 is adopted.
All right, that takes us to our regular agenda, and item 28 would look for a motion to consider approval to award a contract to Knife River Midwest LLC of Sioux City, Iowa for the Asphalt Overlays 2023-1 project for an amount of $1,942,930.75.
I'll make a motion of consideration or approval to award the contract to Knife River Midwest LLC.
Motion and second, and have some background on this. Anna Allen, our Assistant City Engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are looking to award a contract to Knife River Midwest LLC. We had a bid opening. Knife River and Grimes Asphalt were both bidders on this project. Knife River was the apparent low bidder at $1,942,930.75. Grimes Asphalt Paving of Des Moines was $2,154,195.85. The low bid was within 6.5% of the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate was $1,826,717. The asphalt overlay project that went out for bid is for North Victory Road from Benjamin Avenue north about 2,678 feet. East Monroe Avenue from Fort Street east about 4,100 feet, so about to the transfer station. Vehicle parking district lots downtown. There are 6 lots downtown that will be milled and overlaid. The other areas are along Blaine Street by Hy-Vee, East Benjamin Avenue at the flood control, Madison Avenue from 1st to 7th, and Norfolk Avenue from 7th to 9th Street. I can answer anybody's questions that they have.
And with these projects, will there be complete shutdown of the streets?
In some areas there will. So on North Victory Road, we had talked with the contractors a little bit and found that if we were able to close down North Victory Road completely for them to do the overlay, that would be a reduction in cost for traffic control. Right now, their traffic control costs were fairly high for that section of roadway, just because having a flagger and pilot cars or whatever they would need in order to have that just one lane open and getting people around would be pretty costly when it comes to that. The other areas, East Monroe Avenue, from Fort Street east to the transfer station, we're not gonna be able to shut that down, so that'll still be one lane traffic through that section there, so they'll have flaggers and I don't know if they'll need a pilot car or not, but they'll do what they need to do to get vehicles safely through that area. The other lane of Blaine Street would be completely closed for an overlay there. The vehicle parking districts, we were gonna work with a contractor to figure out a schedule. I think there might be more than one closed at one time, so we would coordinate that with downtown businesses.
On schedule number 8, it says East Benjamin Avenue at flood control. What's that mean at flood control?
So there's a section on the westbound lanes, so it'd be the southern of the westbound lanes, just east of the flood control on Benjamin Avenue. I think that's starting to fall apart a little bit, and so we want to get back in there and re-mill and overlay that section. It's a short piece. I think it's maybe 400, 500 feet of just the one lane.
And Anna, what are your expected start date and finish date on these projects?
The expected start date would be in June. The Knife River has an asphalt plant already in place here north of town, so they would like to get started as soon as they can. So planning on June. I would estimate they'd be done by end of August.
Any other questions? Just a question about the overall program. And this might be a question for Steve too, but just to kind of signal the elevation of resource allocation that's been made in these streets. So typically between asphalt overlays and concrete improvement programs, I think on average we've been able to spend $250,000 to $500,000 per year historically. This year, we have found a way through creative budgeting to do more, recognizing the high level of need, to the tune of, I think it was about 3.2 million combined between asphalt and concrete improvements. Is that accurate? Steve, can you comment on that?
That's correct, Mayor. About little over $1.3 million in concrete repairs, and then it would be in addition, this 1.9 million of asphalt mill and overlay. And there's, I think inside that mill and overlay projects, another 400,000 of concrete repair projects. So it's about 1.5 million in mill and overlay and this year, and so about 1.7 million in asphalt or concrete repairs.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Any public input on this?
Jim McKenzie, I guess the question I have is, there's $317,000 that's included for overlaying the VPD parking lots, and I'm just curious where that's going to come from.
Those dollars would come out of our city highway allocation funds.
So we're now using CHAF. Traditionally, the VPD has paid for the maintenance of those lots, and the VPD actually claims that they own the lots from the recent discussions where they gave the lot north of the Kensington to Ho-Chunk for $1. And so now we're saying we don't have enough CHAF money, we don't have enough street money to fix our streets, but we're gonna now pave the downtown parking lots for the benefit of the downtown business owners that traditionally will pay for that. So now that's being pushed off on the taxpayers to the detriment of the rest of our streets. I guess the other question that I have is the parking lot north of the Kensington that's being sold for $1, is that also being part of that? Is that also being overlaid?
So to answer the latter question first, no, we're not doing a mill and overlay on the lot that was recently sold. I guess to the prior question about the cost of the mill and overlay and VPD, so I mean, ultimately VPD is part of the city. That's a city entity. Historically, you know, my take in the conversation that we've had with subcommittee and VPD is that, you know, through a recognizing that VPD is that arm of the city and monitoring those parking lots and taking care of those. Historically, the maintenance that needed to occur didn't occur, and so we're looking at this as an opportunity just to kind of clear up the history, restore the lots to what they should be, so that we have safe parking lots for the community. The use of CHAF dollars for off-street parking is a authorized use of CHAF dollars within state statutes. So we're not doing something there that we shouldn't be doing or can't do. That's considered part of our traffic and street infrastructure.
But we have needs all over town, and we're prioritizing downtown parking lots over the rest of the needs in town that have traditionally been paid for by VPD, special tax dollars that the downtown business owners pay, and now that's not happening. So I just wanted to point that out. Lastly, I don't believe that council persons who own property or businesses downtown should probably vote on this, because your businesses and property are getting the benefit of using regular tax dollars for the parking lots that you benefit from. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I would just note, as part of previous discussion, we have dedicated more historically through this asphalt overlay program and the concrete improvement program we're doing this year than we have in the past. So I don't know that it's fair to say that because VPD is one of the several projects in here that any of those other projects are suffering for it. And I would also note that the VPD lots, at the suggestion of the city of Norfolk, within the last year, went away from permitting a good portion of many of those lots were previously permitted specifically for residential or employee or customer parking. That permitting system has ended, and all of those lots, all of those 13 or 14 lots within the VPD downtown are open and free to the public to use. Any other discussion? Any discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 29, we look for a motion to consider rejecting the bid received for the 2023 Johnson's Park Improvement Project.
Rejecting a bid for Johnson Park.
Second.
Motion and second. And for some background on this, Steve Ramus, our Public Works Director.
Mayor and council, earlier this spring, we had put out for bids the second part of the Johnson's Park Improvement Project. That project included several phases in the Johnson Park footprint. Those items some of those will be discussed here a little bit later. It was a fairly extensive project. Ultimately, we had one bidder that bid on that. That was Hausman Construction locally. During the bid process, we were tracking plan holders. We had 9 prime bidders listed as plan holders during the bid process. Following up with some of them after the bid process, they just felt it was there was a lot of components in there that just didn't fit one particular contractor real well. And ultimately, the one bidder that did bid on it was a general contractor here in town that would have taken a general contractor's approach to bidding the project, which thus drove the cost of the bid up. Following up with some of the subcontractors that had bid and having some conversation with Hausman as well, we're very confident that going out with individual bid packages that are more trade specific will keep the cost much closer to what we've projected for this project. And so tonight we're recommending rejecting the Hausman bid of about $5.7 million, and then awarding, we'll talk here a little bit later about awarding a change order to our existing contract, and then going out for alternate bid packages, again based on more of the trade perspective around each of the bid packages. So I'd certainly be happy to answer any other questions you have around that.
What was the engineer's estimate of this project before we went out to bid?
Engineer's estimate was $3,460,000. Hausman's bid was $5,760,819, and that included their base bid and some alternates. We had some alternates set up in there that, depending on how they bid, we could either self-perform or go out for smaller contracts for furnishing the amphitheater structure, picnic structures. But looking at a comparison to comparison, $3,460,620 was engineer's estimate for those items. Hausman's bid was $5,759,919.96.
And, Steve, can you comment on the item that we'll take up next? I think was a significant portion of that inflated bid. Can you talk a little bit about that, the specific
Sure.
project?
So as part of that analysis and looking at this, so we had bid groups within the bid package, Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D, E, and F, and G. Those were all individual bid groups that subdivided the project kind of into their trade areas or specific grading, paving, electrical, lighting. In Group A, which was park removals, grading, and drainage, Hausman's bid, or the low bid, was $2,093,029. Currently, with this change order, and this change order is not bringing in 100% of that bid group, but it's bringing in about 57%, if I recall. Between the change order and the work remaining that we would still have to go out and bid, we're projecting $1,120,000, a little less than that, for those items. So about a $975,000 savings just in that bid group compared to the low bid. Likewise, in Group B had the pedestrian structure included in it. Low bid was $1,321,670. Working with the contractor, we've got $1,180,800 in that. So again, a fairly reasonable savings, 140,000 there. So in overall, we're projecting, as we look at these other bid packages, we're projecting a total of about $4.2 million based on what we saw come through Hausman's bids.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. To paraphrase the situation, upon receiving the one bid, staff determined that several portions of it were unnecessarily inflated and went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and said we can do better by working with existing contractor on a major portion of one of the improvements. All the other improvement components, which had been talked about from the beginning stages of design concept for Johnson Park, were better thought to be let out for more specialized contractors in another series of bids. Fair? Is that fair to
yes, that's
characterize? Okay. All right. Any questions, council, for Steve on this?
I don't know if I have a question. I guess maybe it's a statement of that's in particular why I took those off the consent agenda, so we could discuss that more, of trying to stay within budget or hopefully below budget, rather than having those just on consent and then coming forward with this one and probably denying, I would assume, because it's way outlandish over budget. But and I assume we'll have a little bit more discussion too on each of those, maybe even as a package if we could, but how it relates to that project and staying within budget, and that's our biggest concern. Hopefully under budget. So
I'd echo that
Very excited.
statement. I mean, that's the ultimate concern, is where we're going to end up at the end. We don't want to have to come back here and say we've got another change order at the end of this project that significantly increased the amount that we spent on it. So we can stay within budget, and the reason Steve's trying to do this is trying to keep us within that budget. But I think what's going to happen if we don't have the funds, we just won't simply have the funds available. Whatever's not in budget just won't get done, within this, unless, of course, something else happens and somebody comes to the table and says, hey, I'll do this for you, the city or whatever. But that's, I believe, I think the concern, obviously, that's when we talk about it, so.
Yep, and I think that's the process we're working through. The bid came over, and so we're here trying to adapt and accommodate accordingly and still get the work done that's been planned and previously approved through the budgeting process. So, any other discussion on this or public input? Okay. Hearing none, please vote.
Voting in the affirmative, Arns, Webb, McCarthy, Murin, Snorton, Clausen, Hildebrand. Voting in opposition, Granquist. Motion carries.
Okay, so item 30. Item 30 would look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 4 with United Contractors Incorporated for the First Street Bridge and in-stream improvements project, resulting in a net increase of $1,570,905.85.
I'll offer for consideration approval of change order number 4 with United Contractors.
Motion second, and Steve, can you continue discussion on this that we started earlier?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'll open this, and then we do have staff here as well, potentially to help answer some questions. So Anna, I may need her assistance to answer questions, and we also have our Parks Director here, Nathan Powell, tonight, and I think Pat Boyle is here, our construction manager that spends quite a bit of time on the project. So they're all here and eager to answer questions should something need to go their way. So before you then would be the change orders for a substantial portion of bid schedule A, which was park removals, grading, and drainage, and group B, park paving and trails. And I don't know, did we have anything prepped or anything to show? I'll generally explain. So with the existing contractor there, United Contractors, they were more than willing to step up as long as we move this along pretty quick, and so they can get in there. One of the big drivers was getting the bridge moving. There was some time to that. The bridge is under design right now by a manufacturer, and they understand, that formal approval of the change order was yet to come, but they were willing to move that forward. The bridge, as we understand today, would be delivered right around the first part of October. A couple weeks ago, as we were working with manufacturer, we thought it might actually be delivered in late August, early September, but it does look like that'll be early October now to set the pedestrian bridge. Coming up on your screens then is Johnson's Park, and Val, you have an ability just to rotate that so north is up. We'll put it in the correct, here we go. So what you see in yellow is the portions of the Group B, the paving, that are part of this change order. Obviously, all of the grading and drainage that's interior to that lower park area. So we call that lower park area. Pretty much everything that you see is yellow, north of the river, and yellow on this particular sheet. So all of that grading to raise up that grade. There's some drainage system in there, and then all the trail paving, setting the pedestrian bridge. Any of the removals that need to occur within the park would be done in the lower park as well as the upper park. They're not going to do anything within the street itself where some of this paving is, but if there's existing, the picnic shelters will come out, the existing basketball court will come out. If there's, I don't remember if there's concrete up or there around the existing play area, that would come out. The play equipment itself would come out. So they'll do all the removals, they'll do the grading. In the lower part, they're not going to do any grading in the northern part. That's pretty close to final grade. So that's what this change order is doing for $1.5 million. It preps us that as we start putting out these other smaller bid packages, the bid package for the sports courts, which would be the new basketball court you see there in purple. That court has an incorporated chiller system into the slab. So during the winter, we'll put an ice skating enclosure around that, flood that, and then that court, that concrete court, would function as essentially a freezer to freeze that ice. So we'd be able to have, I think, Nathan, the intent would be somewhere maybe early October through about March, be able to have ice. Bring Nathan up for a few.
Sorry. Yes, it would be around the earliest, depending on weather, it'd be Thanksgiving. Through about mid-March would be the latest. Yep.
Yeah. So this change order, again, it just preps the site for all these other bid packages that would need to come after that. So the cyan or blue, all that concrete work, the parking on the south side of Prospect, the parking on the west side of Oak, the ring around the playground equipment, the ring up there, the trail, the sidewalks around the water feature, the picnic shelter pads. Those would all be things that we bid out as part of the future bid packages. Again, as we looked at, just kind of, not to rewind the clock too much and go back through some stuff there, but originally when we were looking at trying to get this out for bids last fall, the real driver behind that was the bridge and getting the bridge bid and under construction, so that sometime around May, June this year, we were setting the bridge with the current contractor on site, anticipating that they would have been very interested in bidding this. As that bid schedule got delayed, and now with the one bid that we did receive being substantially high, pulling the trigger and getting that bridge moving so we can get the abutments in, the piling driven, and then get whatever finish work we need done around that while we're down in here messing around with the embankment and all these rocks is real important, because it will be difficult to kind of get back into this area once we truly wrap the project up.
So, Steve, there was value seen for two reasons. As I see it, primarily in doing it this way, you're working with the existing contractor who's doing the bridge and in-stream improvements. And it seems there's a high level of comfort in the work that they've been doing, a good working relationship. Second, there's cost savings to be realized when compared to the other bid we received.
Yeah, we're looking between these two bid packages. We're right around that $1 million in savings to do this change order.
Yep. Thank you.
So, Steve, when you're saying $1 million in savings, not to be redundant, but
$1 million under what the bid was compared to the bid we received.
Set the original budget.
We're a little over the original budget here, and that's being driven by the bridge. So the bridge has come in quite a bit higher than the original budget was. So that's put us over the budget. We're still managing the project for cost savings. We know we're going to be delivering some savings back on the in-stream improvements. We're pretty confident that's going to be north of $250,000. It could be upwards of $400,000 in savings that we're working on there, but it's going to be somewhere in that range. I hate to put a number down there and then not be able to deliver that, but we've already taken about 100. I can't remember exactly, but I think we've taken about 150,000 out of the contract through some change orders where we've had to add work, but we subtracted out. We were able to keep those fairly flat by removing some of the rock quantity. And then again, we're still tracking on being able to deliver north of $250,000 would be a comfortable number for me to put out right now in savings on that. So we'd have to consume that back for what this bridge is coming in. But there was compared to the engineer's estimate, there was a pretty good bid bust there in the bridge. And we're still saving on this. Hausman's number was 637, and working with the contractor and supplier, we're at 526, so 110,000 in savings compared to Hausman's bid.
All right.
Steve, I got a question. I think I was going along the lines with Shane too, of looking at the original bid more than what outrageous bid from Hausman actually was, and considering that a cost savings, but, with obviously the goal of being within budget, so. My question's more on the, on this bid and the mobilization, and if it's a contractor that's on site, why there is any mobilization at all.
Sure. So mobilization itself is probably a bad term. You know, I see how it's easy to think of that like that. Mobilization is very standard. I've never used anything else for it in my 30 plus years. It's been called mobilization. Mobilization includes anything that they have to do to prepare for the project. Mobilize equipment is certainly part of that. You're correct. You know, I couldn't necessarily tell you how much equipment out here right now is the equipment that would be used compared to, you know, maybe they've got to bring some other stuff in. But it includes any preparatory work or operations that have to be done ahead of, you know, lining up where you're gonna, where's all this, where are they gonna take all the removal? You know, it's one thing to do the removal, but where are they taking all this concrete and stuff? Maybe we can take it in and bury it on site or bury it in the bottom of the river. So it's any preparatory work and operations that have to be done ahead of actual construction work. It includes acquiring any equipment, supplies, personnel, and incidentals. Incidentals, best way to think of incidentals is this, you know, these projects all have line items. So bid schedule, say Group A here has 45 line items in it. There's 45 line items or 25 line items in Group B. So we pay for the work based on a unit price and number of units installed, or the number of units of work actually completed. And the units themselves don't necessarily include 100% of the work. Usually there's some incidental, some other stuff that goes on behind the scene. And so that mobilization number is where they capture all of that other cost. It can range anywhere from 10% to 25%. 25% is really on the high side. I would say that's generally what we see on smaller projects. Here between bid schedule A and B, you know, we got a $1.5 million change order. 150,000 of that is their MOB. So you got 1.35 million. So we're a little over 10% in MOB, which is pretty reasonable. Yeah, but just reading from the definition, all work which must occur before beginning construction, any pre-construction costs not directly attributable to other pay items.
Any other discussion on this, council? Any public input?
I'm Kim Davis. I live at 310 Oak Street. And the bridge you're talking about, is that the First Street Bridge?
No. So in this particular drawing here, the bridge would be that yellow line right there. The First Street Bridge, that would be the First Street Bridge right there where that hand is right now. So this is a pedestrian bridge that crosses the river, about 300 feet east of First Street.
Okay, so then the First Street Bridge is still slated to be finished end of June?
Yeah, midsummer. I think they're pouring the deck on the bridge right now. It's kind of scheduled late May, early June, and then it would have to sit there and cure out while they're doing some other work. Yes.
Okay, I just didn't want to put up with that until October.
Oh,
so.
no, me neither.
I hope not.
Good clarification. Yep. All right, any other public input?
I just have one question. If, you know, are we at all putting the cart before the horse on some of this, since since you don't know what the other components are gonna cost, or if you're able to even do some of those, is some of this that you're doing now dependent upon those other components? I go back to last fall, we approved a $500,000 design of a police station before we knew we had funding for it, and now it sits and might have to be changed. So is there any risk to this work that we may have to change it after we build it because we have to make some other changes based upon budgetary concerns? So just some question.
No, excellent question, Jim. I would say no, we don't see any risk of moving this change order forward. And then subsequent to this, we'll be talking about, we've got 5 other bid packages here to go out. And as we get there, but we would only be putting out the first 2 right away. The others, I mean, we put them all on here. We had already approved, I guess, moving forward with the project and bidding the project. So we went ahead and put all of these next 5 bid packages on here so we could move them out as soon as it seemed to be appropriate to do so. But we would only move out with the sports courts and water feature, and the upper park improvements would be the first 2 that we would put out and get those under contract right away, as soon as we could this summer. Once we had those 2 under contract and the work progressed and we could see where we were with funding, the remaining packages would supplement everything else, and not be in, we wouldn't be at jeopardy. So there's about $1.2 million in bid packages that we would be holding on to until we're very comfortable that we can move that forward.
Is any of this building infrastructure up to those other bid packages that we may not be able to afford? I guess the reason that we're holding on to those is just to make sure that we can afford them, and we would not be putting those other 3 bid packages out on the street until we're very comfortable that the financing is in place for those. But I mean, are we expending funds in this $1.6 million change order, 1.9, whatever that was? Are we expending some funds in that to build out infrastructure to facilities that we don't know if we can afford yet?
I would say no. This is mostly dirt work and grading and the pedestrian structure and some drainage. Okay. So it's that component that we're change ordering.
The items that he's talking about leaving is waiting on the irrigation, landscaping, the lighting. Those things we could pull out if we couldn't afford them, but that doesn't isn't going to interfere with any other projects that are in front of you.
Okay. Thank you, Nate. Any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that takes us to items 13 through 17 related to this. First one, look for a motion to consider approval to advertise for bids for the Johnson Park Improvement Project Bid Package 1, Sports Court and Water Feature. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion second. Steve, Nate, Anna, Pat, we've talked about different components of all these. I don't know how deep you need to go into them. This is simply giving approval to advertise for bids. This is not holding council to accepting any bids.
Correct. And again, bid package 1, the agenda item that's actually on the table, we would intend to move that forward fairly quickly. I would expect here in the next week, possibly, to have that out on the street for bids. The sports court and water feature are the 2 purple features on the screen. Again, if there's any questions there.
Again, I don't think I have questions, Steve. I think I just wanted to bring this out in the forefront of the public to show how we're moving forward with this bid process and hopefully finding people that are specialized in each of these different, as I'm paging through here, each bid package has its own type of infrastructure, if you'd like to call it that, where somebody could specialize in each one of those and possibly come in as to put us back on budget or.
And I know
under,
staff
hopefully.
is located, through the conversations, we have located actually a Nebraska contractor or Sioux City contractor that has done these projects in the past. And so we've been having conversation with them. Through the bid process, we would certainly share, send the bid packages out to encourage bidders. The fountain, the water feature supplier has a list of contractors that they work with. They tend to be all around the United States, coming from Texas or Florida or something like that. So we were real pleased through our work and research to find local contractors with that expertise and anticipate good bids.
I do have a follow-up, I guess. So we have engineer's estimate as each one of these would have been broken out anyway
We do.
compare to when we get the bids in. And so that gives us an idea of where we're at if we're over budget on that item. And we would
Correct.
have further discussion possibly in subcommittee or something like that,
Yep.
or Parks Board,
And
whatever
so,
it might
and
be.
at this point, we're able to see what was our engineer's estimate, and we're also able to see how was this bid in the bid that we did receive.
One last one. I assume this is the answer, but having 5 different bids, we would project manage that internally in the engineering department between all, let's say we
Correct.
have 5 different contractors?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Like Corey, also, I think it was important when you pulled these off, that you illustrated basically which items these were, like 13 through 17, and then 15 through 17, or 15 through 17 will be targeted if we're going over budget, correct? Nate, that's what you just said. So I think that was important, because I think the realization when we're sitting there talking about change orders on a project that we already allocated funds for, you get a little nervous that at the end we're gonna be over budget, and we don't want that to happen. So by splitting these up, I think you helped enshrine the fact that we can stay within this budget, even if that means we give up on irrigation, or something like that. Or if other funds become available through another source, then that was important for me tonight to understand that.
We're looking for grants all the time, and we're applying for grants for projects like this where we have the funds out there and available. We can go after grants that are available, and we will continue to do that.
Steve, on items like remove concrete sidewalk, remove gravel surfacing, remove foundation of a grill, is that stuff we can do? Or we look at doing that stuff in-house?
There is some, maybe some of that smaller stuff, removing the grill. It just depends on Nathan's resources over there. If it makes sense and we can get staff in there, great. A lot of that stuff is fairly small cost for us just to use a contractor. Do the actual math, and we shake over a vehicle and a couple staff members, we're spending more than what the bid item is. But we can look at that, answer that question, conversation about a couple pieces, could we do it? And if we do make that decision. If we do make that decision and do something internally, again, these are unit bid prices. We only, if they don't take it out, we don't pay them. So, that cost would just be a cost savings that would develop, and at the end of the project, there would be a negative change order for that particular work item.
I do have one question on that, Steve. So the 5 items that you did pull out that we'll look at separately, plus change order 4 that we just approved, by splitting that out, does that delay this process at all, or completion of the park, versus if we would have moved forward with the initial?
The bid package that we put out in April, I don't recall exactly what we were looking at, but I believe we were looking at, and do you recall, was that roughly an October completion for everything? We did have milestones throughout the project that set certain milestones for certain things to get done. Specifically, we wanted to be sure as we're looking at river activity, but we did have milestones. I think Anna looks like she's prepped to talk about that.
Correct. So as part of the Johnson's Park project, in the plan set, there were some milestones. So we had talked about, overall, that final completion would be in May of 2024. Knowing that some of these long lead items, if the bridge was a long lead item or fountain components, things like that, and then just contractor availability. I know we're looking at, with change order 4 and that contractor being here on site, getting that done, starting on that this summer and into this fall. Wanting to get some of that sports court and fountain done this fall. Some of the other items that aren't necessary to get done yet this year would be pushed off probably until the spring. So probably some more of that upper park work would be probably more this spring.
So how does that compare to your original time frame? Does this slow it down or speed it up? Or
No, oops. I don't think this necessarily slows it down. With the change order, going in for United, I think that helps the situation actually, because then, their time frame to finish up on another project and then get to this project, they're ready to go on this. The part that might slow it down a little bit is just putting out bids for some of the sports court and the upper park improvements. But overall, I don't think that'll slow down the overall project.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Any other questions?
When do we think we're gonna see water flowing?
Yeah, why don't you talk about, Steve or Pat or Anna, talk about timeline for what's being done now, just as kind of a public update.
Oh, you're going to put us on the spot, Mayor.
Knowing that we're not necessarily
Pat,
holding you
why don't
binding
you get up here and talk about this? I think
to
you're
dates.
You're the closest one to all that activity out there.
Pat Boyle, city construction engineer. First of all, did you have a specific question?
Yeah, just kind of like, when's the water gonna be flowing, and we can kind of see what this is gonna start. I think we're just getting a little fatigued with the park and not having it done, and so we could just start seeing some water flowing, some progress being made.
First of all, I'll start back a little ways. Obviously, this type of a project is not something that contractors normally bid on, and I think we were pretty lucky getting a local contractor basically out of O'Neill, North Construction, who turns out is very good at placing those rock. And the designers in Colorado have even asked him to do some more in other states, but I don't know that he's going to do that.
Yeah.
So we have a good contractor, and he's placing it well. These structures need to be tested, and so we've got 2 of them in that have not been tested yet. And when I say tested, I mean we open the floodgates. The engineers from Colorado look at it. They're looking for a specific wave or something because they're all designed a little differently. The reason we haven't tested them is because of the box culvert on Benjamin Avenue. They were down in the bottom, and we couldn't open it up until they're forming the walls now, and once those are poured, they'll take out their cofferdam, and then we can test whenever we want to.
Okay.
Now, included in that is a lot of fill section down on the beach area, which is in the river there where all the rock is placed. We're right now about 2.5 weeks into a 60-day settlement period. We've got some settlement plates in there so that if you're going to build a bridge and so forth and sidewalks and stuff in there, you don't want that settling out after you build it. So we're in a settlement period right now, and actually the North Construction is doing a DOT project. Well, we've got this all north of O'Neill but he'll be back in a couple weeks. And he couldn't do some of the work by the bridge. There was some conflict with the bridge contractor and him, but the question was put to me, could we possibly have some water over the 4th of July? I would prefer not, for several reasons. We won't be completely done, and I know the surf structure won't be done. Now, we could open it up and let people through there, but now it's still a construction zone, and I'm sure Nate doesn't want people in the park, and it's not very pretty yet. I think when it's done, it's gonna look beautiful, and I would like it to be that way. And of course, we haven't tested it yet. And of course, nobody can go down there unless I put water through there. They'd have to walk. So could we open it up a little sooner? If we had to, yes. I would prefer to wait until we got at least everything done, maybe not the surf structure. And then maybe allow and get the beach area kind of in order, and then maybe allow some people to go through that at the soonest. I'd actually prefer the whole thing be done before we let anybody in there. But time-wise, again, we're not even going to get that pedestrian bridge until October 12th. So, yeah, I would love to have it done sooner. I just don't think that it will be.
Candid answer. As to the question about progress, I think anybody who's been down there and walked it as closely as possible while being safe, and no construction happening, has seen that the entire area looks much different today than it did even 4 months ago.
Yes, it does. And I would add, while I'm up here, I think we'd almost be at risk if we don't do the change order, because the timing is perfect. As you can see, we got a contractor right in there where all that stuff needs to be built. And I would venture to say, I'm going to go out on a limb, if you delay that and do it at a later date, you may even double the cost. So we've got a good contractor at a good price, and the timing is right. So I would really love to see that change order go.
Right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I would just say, in general, I do commend staff for how they reacted to this. It's a challenging bid environment for anything. Talking to the mayor of Seward, who's a friend of mine, they've proposed a community center that they've been trying to build for years. It was a projected $9.5 million project. The bid they got was $18 million. So we are in that environment, but in this case, staff, when confronted by a bid that wasn't going to be publicly justifiable or plausible for the project, adapted, adjusted, creatively adjusted, and I think has a solid plan moving forward. Any other discussion?
You'd be disappointed if I didn't come up here. I guess the question I would have on 13 through 17 is the engineer's estimate and the plans. It says that that's on file. I just wish in the future, when you have a council agenda, so that the public can understand it a little bit better, if you would include the actual engineer's estimate in the agenda. And I'm sure you have all the plans and specifications in electronic form. If you would just put them as an attachment in the agenda, just like you do everything else, then the public can understand really what's going on and get a better feel for the project. I don't even understand how you as council people know what you're voting on unless you've studied those plans, because they're not in the agenda. So that's the only comment I would have.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Anyone else wish to make comment?
Terry Rasmussen. I guess comment that I'd like to make is it seems like we've gotten to a good spot here because if we've got a way to get contractors that specialize in certain areas of this project, and hopefully we can get a lower bid and end up with a really nice park here. This is a park that I think is going to be the envy of a lot of places. So commend the engineering staff getting this all done, and thanks for watching the budget. I know it's hard to keep under budget a lot of times. Breaking this up hopefully will help us do that. Thanks everybody for working on this.
Thank you, Terry. Any other comments? Okay. If not, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 14, I would look for a motion to consider approval to advertise for bids for the Johnson Park Improvement Project Bid Package 2, Upper Park Improvements.
I'll make a motion.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 15, would look for a motion to consider approval to advertise for bids for the Johnson Park Improvement Project Bid Package 3, Park Structures. Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 16 would look for a motion to consider approval to advertise for bids for the Johnson Park Improvement Project Bid Package 4, Park and Trail Lighting and Electrical.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 17 would look for a motion to consider approval to advertise for bids for the Johnson Park Improvement Project Bid Package 5, Irrigation and Landscaping.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 18 would entertain a motion to consider approval to advertise for request for qualifications from design, build, and construction manager at-risk firms to submit a letter of interest to design and install team lockers at Tahazuka Park.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. For some background on this, Nate Powell, our Parks Director.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I'll just review where we're at with the team lockers at Taha. Softball complex, fields 1, 2, and 3, if you're familiar with that area.
Corey plays at 7:30. Corey plays at 7:30.
We did have a discussion about this at our May 1st subcommittee meeting with approval to move forward with an agreement with the schools, but we were unable to get that agreement to you today. We'll have it at the next council meeting. But in the meantime, we wanted to get out the letter of interest to receive proposals to design and build a locker room facility at the softball complex. We're a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I'll give a little bit of review of what's going on at this moment. So what we have is an agreement with the schools that we've been working on for the last year or so. Norfolk Public Schools is going to donate $400,000 for the team lockers. Northeast is also donating $400,000 for the team lockers as well. The team lockers includes a set of lockers for home and away teams, one set of men's and women's restrooms, ADA parking and sidewalk access. It'll repurpose the old restrooms at the press box. And that'll be one family restroom and one umpire restroom in that facility. In addition to those funds, I've been talking with the Kohler representative from the Jack Kohler donation. We have another $698,000 available. They are going to contribute towards the retractable wall between the lockers to have a indoor batting cage there in the winter time. Backstop replacement, dedicated fast pitch field, landscaping and irrigation, and just remaining funds for the team lockers as well. you know, and Kohler family representative, they're on board with this. We would call this the Kohler Softball Complex with their investment. This is a win for girls' sports here in Norfolk. It's overdue and needed. We've put a lot of investment into the baseball facilities. It'd be nice to do it for the fast pitch as well. In addition, we do have $135,000 budgeted for a restroom at Taha that we have not used yet. So staff recommends approval to advertise for the RFQ. This is just an advertisement for proposals at this time. I'll have the agreement with the schools at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Nate.
Nate, I think I read it, it's up to 400,000 from
That's correct.
both.
Yep.
Any idea of what we think it might come to, or how we're going to go with the design build thought process of giving them a,
Yep. The
I guess, an estimated range?
The estimated range of what we just discussed would be just under $1.4 million total. That'd be with the Kohler donation as well, up to up to 800,000 with the schools, and we would not exceed that amount. So we would design something within budget.
So not to exceed.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do with the design build process. Is we'll know the total before we go into contract.
Any other questions? Nate, good work. It's the first step in a partnership that will accomplish some necessary improvements at that park. And appreciate the fact that we have partners in the school system, Norfolk Public Schools and Northeast Community College here tonight, and their support for this moving forward. So, thank you. Any other discussion on this, council, or public input?
You wouldn't want to leave without me finishing. So I'm trying to understand, so there's 400 from NPS, 400 from Northeast Community College, 698 from the Kohler funds, so that's a total 1.5 million available. I'm trying to understand the budget.
That's correct. In addition, we also have 135,000 budgeted for a restroom at Taha that we have not used in addition to that. So we would be at 1.633, 1,633,000 total.
Okay. So the total cost of so you've got a budget of 1.633, and so you're going to stay within that budget. Is that the plan? Okay. All right. Thank you. And I would just like to congratulate the city on working with those other entities to get this accomplished. I think that's great to work together, and the fact that they're willing to partner, I think it's a wonderful thing, so appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, please vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill Robinson, and I'm going to speak to you as a citizen and a parent, not as an employee of the school district. 3 daughters who've played softball over the years, and I'm just excited about this potential, long overdue. So I appreciate the city working with the school district and the college and all this that's going on, because this isn't going to be anywhere near like a Cadillac facility. We're doing essential needs, but they're much needed. So get us in the code, and I just want to share that appreciation as a citizen and a parent of some former softball players. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
All right, that brings us back to item 31. And I would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5834, amending section 24-164 of the city code to restrict parking in the following areas. A, the west and south sides of Ferguson Drive, from the intersection of East Bluff Avenue and Ferguson Drive going north and west around the curve 360 feet to where Ferguson Drive meets and transitions into East Passwalk Avenue. And B, the north side of Madison Avenue from the 3rd and Madison Avenue intersection west 153 feet. This is to allow for vehicle traffic to be held in queue for an adjacent drive-through.
I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5834.
Second.
Motion second, and for some background on this, we'll hear from Chief Don Miller of the Norfolk Police Division.
Mayor and council, as mentioned in the introduction, there's two parts to this amending our parking restrictions. The first one is related to some traffic concerns that were brought to elected officials relating to, it's probably easiest described as you go east on East Passwalk, and as it curves to the south, it becomes Ferguson. Currently, vehicles are allowed to be parked on both sides of that curve. It creates some side obstructions and creates some safety concerns with the people parking on both sides of the curve. We looked at the concern. Captain Ryman visited with every one of the neighbors, 7, 8, 9 neighbors that are affected by this. And virtually all of them, except for one, was either in favor or neutral to the idea of restricting parking on the inside curve. Picking the inside curve because as your sight triangle, as you're making the curve, you want to be able to see the vehicles come in the other direction. So we put together the ordinance. We're proposing restricting it. The dimensions that you have there are from the south intersection up around the corner where it turns into Passwalk. In your packets, you've got there's a yellow line marking where that no parking zone is. Some may question why you're going all the way to the intersection. Well, with driveways, you can't park within 5 feet of a driveway, 40 feet of an intersection anyway, so this includes that whole area for clarification. So that's the first part of this for the Ferguson Drive East Passwalk piece. The second one involves a development on the northwest corner of 3rd and Madison Avenue. If there's questions about the specific development, I might see if Steve has any, he might have some additional information to the development, but it's going to be a facility that has a drive-up window. And the way it's laid out, as you can see in your drawings, a couple of cars backed up would be into traffic, and that wouldn't be a safe environment, and we know drive-throughs tend to back up sometimes. So this is creating no parking area on the north side of Madison Avenue, right in front of where that business is going to be, to provide a queue for the vehicles that are backed up so they have a safe place to stop and not stopping in traffic. They both made sense for public safety, and so that's why we're proposing both of these changes to the parking ordinance. Any questions?
Has the operator of this building on Madison Avenue that wants to drive through, are they yet operational, or are they close to being operational in order to take 6 spots out if they're not ready?
I don't know you know what their time frame is, Steve? I don't know that the construction has.
I don't know what their time frame is. I don't know, Val, anything in your office that would indicate what their time frame is to be open? The juice.
The Conover
The
development,
juice.
the drive-through on
Yeah.
3rd and Madison. I know there's emails and conversations, but I don't have a specific.
I guess I have an issue if this, we haven't even started construction yet, and we're taking 6 parking stalls out along Madison Avenue. I think that's, as it's been said tonight, putting the cart before the horse in this particular situation. I understand there's a hazard with the vehicles on Madison Avenue as they're trying to pull into the drive-through, but with that being said, there's no activity of construction started yet, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So I guess I would like to see this come back at a later date, and versus taking 6 stalls out of parking on Madison Avenue. I'd like to see this particular item taken off or changed until a later date when we actually have a construction date of opening.
Or a finish date.
Or a finish date.
Yeah, finish date. Or, yeah.
I think I can go with that too. I think item A is a necessity through the issues that they had there, which is similar to our neighborhood.
Correct.
On Sycamore and closing the inside lane, the inside curve, and it's made a big difference, even though you still have to take it slow. But that's made a big difference in the traffic going through our neighborhood. The item B, I see Danny's not here, but I assume we could make an addendum to this ordinance and
I think you
remove
could
B
simply
and
amend the underlying ordinance to remove item B. And
am I right? We could make an amendment to that ordinance and then have a new ordinance for that once it's becomes pertinent?
Yeah, I
Correct.
think Conover's
Yeah.
thinking is around July maybe for that.
Say that again, Justin.
I think Conover's thinking that G-Stop will be open around July, maybe. So, we have time.
Yeah, I'm not opposing to this. I'm just saying it's,
Yeah, I know what you
we don't
mean.
have a completion date, so it's kind of hard to
Yeah,
take
that's what I'm telling you. He's
these
thinking
stalls
around,
out right now.
thinking around July.
Would that be, you see any issues with that, Don?
No, I don't. I think it would be prudent once they're ready to open.
Sure,
We
I do
can
too.
discuss that again, but I have no problem.
not to make it more complicated, you could also amend to item B to say it goes into effect upon a permit being approved for the business.
And they'll,
Final.
yeah, just looking at it, probably those eastern two, so I pulled up the agenda item just so I could see it on my side. The western two, actually the two stalls that currently have vehicles in it, as long as we're gonna allow them to construct their approach and do that type of construction, maybe you're just saying bring it back when it's closer to construction or closer
Well,
to done.
That is a good consideration. Is this area part of the construction?
But they will need to build an approach into Madison Avenue where those two vehicles are, or at least improve an approach. There might be an existing approach that they're doing some improvement to.
But Val, you said you don't even have a permit for this yet?
Actually, I misspoke. I looked into the database and we have the permits. We have done no inspections on it yet, so I don't know how far along. If they've pulled the permit and actually started work on it yet, I don't know. We don't have any inspections once we've issued the permit, so nobody has actually gone down there to see any work.
Okay.
I guess I can see where Steve's coming from, though, where if you have construction going on there, do you really want cars parked at a construction area?
But we can't verify any construction has even started or when the anticipated date of construction is gonna start.
Sure.
I mean, if I had some details and some facts, I'd be okay. I mean, this is,
Right.
that puts a different spin on this altogether.
Yeah, I don't see the,
Steve,
I
you
don't
got a
see the
question
guy
for-
here.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just say I don't see Con over here to discuss it either.
Yeah, and that would make this a lot easier decision as well.
I got a question for Steve. Do you know, I know as part of their process, they're redoing all that whole open area, grassy area that is currently concrete. Because of all the construction in that area, are they going to need a staging area? Are they going to need those lanes for staging equipment and blocking that off as part of that?
They haven't made a request yet to block that off for any staging purposes. I think kind of back to Councilman Hildebrandt's comment, if we had some information probably from
So one question.
Conover, it'd be easier.
Sure. One question I have, maybe, and I haven't seen a site plan for this, but are they gonna utilize, are they talking about their lane's gonna be part of the street?
Correct.
We don't use that.
Right. So as staff, when they came in and we consumed this as staff and we had Chief Miller with us, the concern was them stacking as they're stacking in there, assuming, these juice stops, it's gonna be kind of like a coffee house where they stack out onto the street. And so just knowing that we have those kinds of issues in other places, if they're gonna stack out onto the street, let's give them a place to stack to. And so, removing the parking there so that, we're not saying stack here, we're just removing the parking, I guess, so that they can stack there. But again, we know it's a problem, a significant problem, in a couple areas of town when those things stack out into the street.
I guess my concern was that they're taking advantage of city street for lane by not, because it doesn't fit, they don't have a lineal foot for a car, for 3 or 4 cars to sit in a lane.
With where the the window is and where the ordering box is, I'm going from memory, but I don't think they could fit more than 2 cars stacked there. And yes, using the city street, but we also know human nature, and if we don't provide them a place, they're gonna be parking in the street, blocking traffic anyway. So from a public safety standpoint, I would much rather make an adjustment so they can safely do that instead of blocking traffic. Because they will. I mean, we've seen that in other locations where they block some pretty significant roadways and cause some safety concerns.
So, go ahead.
Anything we just site plan.
Yeah. I guess I would, can I make a motion for an amendment? Okay, I'd like to make a motion for an amendment on item B of City Ordinance 5834, pending a site plan and further completion date.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Brianna, are you okay with that? Okay.
So, from my understanding, is that putting it off or looking at approving it at that time?
Oh,
I'm just trying to understand, are we saying B would be we're gonna bring it back forward?
Intent of the motion, approval of the parking change given site plan?
Correct.
So we vote on the amendment first, and then we vote on the ordinance as amended,
Yes.
correct?
Is the intent of the amendment, clear for staff? Is that make?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Now, I know Danny's not here, so I'm going to pretend to be an attorney like I play one on TV. I think for simplicity, do we want to get rid of that, amend this to get rid of that parking? I think we can easily, within the next month even, bring back another ordinance to amend that once we have a better idea, and we can bring back a site plan with that. But if we want to hit a more timely issue for Ferguson, that one is the one we address tonight, and that way, and then we can bring back for the one on Madison here, 3rd and Madison, whenever that is. That would be probably easiest, I think, for staff to be able to do that, and then we'll just bring it back with a site plan, and we can talk about it specifically that time. So I would amend it
It seems
and
simpler.
get rid of that B part.
If you're amenable to that, Councilman, I would just then withdraw your previous motion for an amendment and adjust.
Withdraw that.
Okay.
Can I just,
Sure.
I don't know if this is helpful or not. Can you put me back up there, please? This is actually attached to the conditional use permit for the drive-through. Is what you're looking for, showing the menu board and then the pickup window?
Yes. So you have the menu board, and then you'd have a couple of cars
Just stacked this way.
staged on that west end. More than 2 cars will be spilled over into the street.
Correct.
Now, I have the same thing as an attachment showing the no parking area on the south edge. So
Okay.
you're pointing that what you're showing is already in the agenda too.
Okay.
Or if
And
anybody wanted to refer to that, they have it.
The way they drew that, I don't know who drew that, the developer's architect, but the way they drew that, an arrow represents a vehicle. So I think they drew those arrows, and they might have a dimension there, but each arrow represents a car.
In 11 foot, that radius is going to be impossible to get to your menu board. So maybe we need to, that's, I'm just saying.
All right, for tonight, though, I think we've got a plan moving forward simply to remove this item B from ordinance number 5834. So is there a motion accordingly?
I'll make a motion.
I can second.
Okay, motion second on the on the amendment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, we then take up the amended ordinance number 5834.
I'll make a motion to consider ordinance number 5834 as amended.
Second that.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
I think.
Hearing none, please vote.
Short title.
Short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 24-164 of the official city code to restrict parking in the following area: the west and south sides of Ferguson Drive from Bluff Avenue north and west around the curve 360 feet to where Ferguson Drive meets and transitions into Paswalk Avenue, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5834 carries on first reading as amended.
Seeing no opposition, I'd make a motion that we suspend the rules and pass this ordinance on second and third.
Second.
Motion second to suspend the rules and approval on second and third readings. No discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5834 carries on second and third.
And we're almost there. Last but not least, item 32. Look for a motion to consideration to enter into an agreement with Geocom to provide a detailed address point layer for every location in Madison and Stanton counties as required by the Public Service Commission new standards.
Kind of tight on this one, aren't they?
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion second. Chief Miller, please give us some background on this, please.
Okay, I'm going to try to simplify a relatively complicated conversation. This could have just as easily been an amendment to the current contract as it is a new contract. Geocom is our GIS vendor for 911 services. There's 2 vendors that are used for GIS that are state approved. This Geocom currently works with 82 out of the 93 counties in the state of Nebraska. That's their specialty. The other one, as you're probably familiar with, is G-Works, and they do more with assessors, and they've kind of diverged a little bit on their specialties. And so, as part of everything we've been doing with dispatch, all dispatch centers are required to meet a new standard on their GIS data points. This has been around for probably a couple of years. We've been putting it off because of the changes that we were making, both with taking over the dispatch center for Madison and also the regionalization with Northeast Nebraska. The time has come for us to do this. And what this means is our current GIS system that we use, when the 911 call comes in, it provides a point on a block. As you think about a city block, it says it's in the 300 block in Norfolk Avenue. We have no idea which building. Now, we have other systems that point us a little bit closer, but the new standard is that we have to have an address point for every single location in the system. So what Geocom is doing, in addition to our annual stuff that they do, they're going to come in and establish, they're estimating 19,500 address points in all of Madison and all of Stanton County. Every address, every rural address, and for example, in a block, you might have 3 buildings, but each of those buildings has 4 storefronts. Each of those storefronts has to have an address. And they identify that point, they assign latitude and longitude, the physical address, who the responders are, because if it's in the city of Norfolk or in the county of Madison, or which fire district it might be in. Those are all things that are different. And so they're going to create those 19,500 address points. There's a percentage of the Norfolk ones that have already been done because they've been our vendor. But now that we're taking over dispatching for a much larger area, we're some of the last counties in the state to do this. And as like I said, we put it off till we were developing our other systems. And not only are they going to be creating those address points, is they have to merge the systems with the other counties that already have this so that the streets match up and the addresses match up. And then once this is done, this is a one-time cost. Then once this is done, our normal contracts that we already have will be maintaining going forward and updating when addresses change and those types of things. So this contract, I asked them to break it out between Madison and Stanton County because that's the 2 counties we dispatch for. The bid is for $45,812. Now, this will be paid not with new funds, but with what we have called set-aside funds. We have a wireless 911 fee that is charged to all 911 phone lines, and we have certain things that we can, it's very restrictive of what we can use that for. It has to be for dispatch 911 type purposes. And We have certain things that come out of that fund, but any money that's left over gets set aside for future expenses. Because with dispatch centers, there's always unknown expenses that seem to pop up. This is one of them. We currently have about $500,000 in our set-aside funds that can only be used for dispatch-related purposes. And of that money, the Public Safety Commission, Public Services Commission changed the way that's calculated. So this money that we have set aside has to be allocated within the next couple of years. So we want to make sure that we don't give it back to and we want to make sure we utilize it accordingly. Public Safety Commission, Public Services Commission is requiring us to do this, and they said we can use 100% of our set-aside funds to pay for this. Now, we don't have to pay for it now. We get the agreement now. It's a 10 to 12 month in the contract. They're expecting it to be about 6 to 8 months to get this done, and then we would pay for it when it's done. This will be reflected in my wireless 911 budget as we're getting into the October timeframe, because it won't be paid until then. But I'm wanting the motion to get started in this process now, so that we can start this process and get current with current standards. So it's complicated, but I'm trying to simplify it a little bit. I'll try to answer any questions that you might have with that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any
This is-
questions?
This is required by the Public Service Commission.
This is yes.
So, okay, thank you.
So this is a nice little benefit from having combined those Stanton County and Madison County dispatch centers together here to use those funds. Is that correct?
Well, the funds, if we did just Madison County, we would pay for it with Madison County funds. Because we are now dispatching for Stanton as part of an agreement and as part of our big picture, when we take over dispatching for Stanton and all of Madison County, we now get those wireless 911 funds. Before, it would have been, if we weren't getting those funds, it would have been somebody else's responsibility to pay those bills. But now that we've taken all that on, we are getting those tax dollars for all of those areas, which is why we're going to pay for it out of those set-aside funds that we are collecting for Stanton and Madison County.
I'll just go a different direction, Don. I want to commend you on thinking ahead on getting this going before it's, obviously before October budget, it'll be in there, but getting this ball rolling so we're prepared as soon as possible. So it's a good thought.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank
Any
you.
public input on this? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
And that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We are adjourned.